Hello everyone, good morning. As we discussed, what is the benefits of using Redux? Redux toolkit in the last session we discussed. Sir, the summary of Redux toolkit, again I'm just recollecting. The main advantage of going for Redux toolkit is maintaining the state globally. You have to understand why should we maintain state globally. For that, I'll give you one simple answer. If you are keeping all the answers within your brain, and if you are talking to yourself, if you are answering your questions, and you see, you are the one who is going to ask a question, you are the one who is going to deliver the answers. If that is the case, which is called as local, nobody is asking question, nobody is expecting you to give answers, then is there any benefits that you are going to get? Yes, of course, you will get a benefits, but not a financial benefits. And you will definitely get. Why? Because every human has to talk to himself at least 15 minutes a day. Okay. But when it comes to that is a local state. But when you are going to appear for an interviews, the interviewers will ask some questions. By that time, your data must be global. It should not be local. If it is local, it is only for you. If it is global, either any interviewer can ask a question so that you can answer for any interviewer. Global state is all about the availability of a data, not only within a component, but also within application. That is called global state. Again, I'm repeating for your benefits. The availability of a data, not only within a component, but also within an application, which can be called as global state. And there is another state called super global state, which means the availability of a data is not only within a component, but also within an application. Even it should also be available outside of an application for other applications too. That can be managed by web storage. What is that? Web storage. Now, when it comes to this state management globally, which is a context of React, But web storage is not a context of React. Web storage is purely browser-related feature. Now, if you guys are opening one application, if you are using a Redux toolkit, the data is available only for that application. Hope you understand. Or if you are using state, the data is available only for a component. Or if you're using prop, the data is available for only that component. Also, in case if you are passing that particular data to a child component. Hope you understand the scope of props. Hope you also understand the scope of state. Hope you understand the scope of a global state. And finally, you should supposed to understand what is the state of a scope of a super global state. Now, guys, you have to have a lot of knowledge here, right from a variable. This is even state is also kind of a variable one. It is not something new. It's an object wherein if you are creating that particular state within a component, the scope is class component if you are using class scope, component level scope. If you are creating a scope of any particular variable or a constant outside of a component, somehow it is within a page or maybe file specific. It's not completely, I cannot say that global state, but it can be called as a file level. But global level is all about store. The store, it is application level state. Instead of calling it as a global state, we can also call them as application level state. So that application might contain multiple components. Since it is application level state, so that component 1 also has a right to import the state, component 2, component 3, and so on, component n, because the store is a global application level state. Hope you understand, sir. Now, this is why it is important, and it is helping us to manage global state easily. and it reduces the Redux boilerplate code. Redux has a lot of steps. However, hope you guys have already worked with the class components, right? In class component, in order to create a state, either you have to put it inside a constructor or you have to cross separately, you have to write a method. Hope you understand, sir. But if you want to update the state again in class component, we have to use this dot set state. Again, if you wanted to make an API calls, component did update. If you wanted to re-render the state which is updated, component should update. Now to do all these operations, 4 operations, initializing and updating and getting the data from an API. And once the data is modified, the state is modified, re-rendering a component, the 4 scenarios are going to handle with the 4 different steps. But when it comes to class component, use effect. Use effect is the guy who is handling all this. And we also learned use context, use callback. In a functional component, we are using hooks, right, sir? But class component has limitations, not limitations, it has lengthy process. Why I picked that example, even though if you guys are using a Redux, it has lengthy process. To avoid that lengthy process and to make your application performance far better, then reset toolkit. That is the recommended one nowadays from the React founders. Who is the React founders? Meta, Facebook. Okay, and it also handles asynchronous API calls using create async thunk. I hope you people have already executed with the help of create async thunk. And if not, please try to do again, because that is 100% interview question. That is a middleware. Now, I would like to explain, since you know the concept, now it is a time for me to explain what is an architecture. What is a architecture? Guys, the architecture is all about, if you all can see here, every application contains multiple connected components. In this diagram, if you all can see, every application is a combination of multiple components which are connected all together. No application contains a single component. But every application, the mandatory component is called as root component, which can also be called as app component, which can also be called as master component. Root, app, that's why whenever you guys are using create React app followed by your application, it creates app.js file. It also contains index.jsx file. It also has index.html file. That app.js is a component which can be called as root component. But from there, all the navigation is going to take place. Now, in our example, so far we discussed about product list. We also discussed about user auth. We also discussed about cart items. This all can be maintained globally only. Now, GST calculations, if you want to do it, it's not necessary to maintain global, but user authentication, it is required, because whenever you guys are navigating between pages, that user authentication is needed for component A, component B, component C, component N. It is really required, not only in page 1, page 2, page N. It is required or not. And wherever you feel if the data is required in multiple places, that is where you have to put the data into global state. Otherwise, no need to put. And it's the biggest question mark for many of the freshers. Sir, what kind of data that I have to store in component? What kind of data that I have to store it in store? What kind of data that I have to store it into the web storage? What kind of data that I have to store it into a database? This is 4 different scenarios. For that, the one answer is, if you think that the data is only limited access to your component, then go for a component level initialization. If you feel that the data is required in application level, then go for a store. And if you think that the data is required in a browser level, then go for a web storage. If you think that the data is really required for n number of applications, no matter whether they are within the context or outside of a context, then go for a database. APIs. Database is If the database is exposed to XYZ, not only for Google. Now, Google, if you all can see, Google is also giving a lot of APIs for login. We can log in through Google also. We can log in through Gmail. We can log in through LinkedIn. We can log in through Twitter. We can log in through Facebook. We can log in through XYZ. Why? Because the login information, the user information is already stored in their respective databases. How that respective data, which is in their individual database, is helping you to log into your system. My company, if my application name is xyz.com, even xyz.com can also be integrated with login with Facebook, login with Gmail. And if someone is lmn.com, there also they can log in. Someone's abc.com, someone's something like CDE, something, whatever XYZ. There also it is useful. Say yes or no. Am I making sense? My sincere advice for all of you guys, please understand, if the database is already connected with n number of applications, whether the applications are within a company, or if the applications are outside of a company, or if the applications is outside of a continent, it is connected. That is where those data that we have to store it in a database. Or not for, see, every small data cannot be stored in database. Every small data cannot be added into the global state. Every data cannot be stored in web storage. Even web storage also has a limitations. Today's session is very, very important. There are a lot of interview questions comes in. Web storage also has a limitations. If it is depends upon the browser. The session storage, local storage, cookies, this all I have already discussed in my previous sessions. I don't want to waste my time. Please work on that. Storage, the data can be stored in multiple ways. Local storage, block level storage, global storage, super global storage, and database storage. These are the 5 varieties of storages. However, in order to remember this concept in easy way, even in your brain also, a single brain has a lot of breakage components. Some people, they will try to proactive. When they are proactive, not only if they are having kind of interest, if the loud one is there, they will try to talk nonsense continuously, isn't it? That scenario also they will try to, if they are in a good mood. What is that? Mood. That is called state. If the state of a component is in good mode, the data of a component is going to render as quickly as possible, then users are going to be happy. And you also be happy in case if you are in happy mode, and you will definitely answer every question. And you have to maintain your state always in a happy mode. That's why don't ever try to make a state as complicated. Okay, I have already explained how to make your state easy. Okay. Now, if you all can see that connected component, in this example, there are 3 components are connected. Maybe when you are working on real-time application, there could be multiple components are connected. If you all can see here, inside a store, how many components are there? Every store contains state. It can also contains reducers, also contain actions, which I already explained, but I'm just explaining diagrammatically. Okay. Now state, it holds the data. Now it is holding a data of an application. Now it is not holding a data of a component. Now if the state is defined inside a component, it is holding a component data. If it is defined inside a store, it is storing the application data. Now component data versus application data. Hope you understand. Now for that one simple example, you are serving a food only within your house. That is component level serving. Maybe you are planning to donate food outside of your house, somewhere else in a temple. That is called store level. That can also be available for n number of components, n number of villagers. Am I making sense? If you are eating food inside your home, that is a local. If you are serving food in the temple, which is called as global. So that in the temple, any of your village mates can also come and they can enjoy the delicious food. Say yes or no? Here, if the data is inside a store, any of the component can also be have a right to import as and when it is required. It is not necessary to import. It is required import it because the data is available in a store. Now, to create a data in a store, that is where object is required. The state object is. Why can't we use props here? It is also an interview question. Why can't we use props here? The reason behind not using props, because the state is always changing. Sir, I'll tell you for that best example, even in your house, I'm just thinking, I'm not watching anything. Even in your house, are you changing too many items? Only 10% of the elements are going to change every day, but 90% of the elements are static still. Say yes or no. You enter into your kitchen, ask your mother, Mummy or Amma, are you going to use all the vessels or all the masala items or all the ingredients, whatever it is there inside a kitchen for preparing a breakfast? Ask that question. She will say definitely, lose ho gaya aapko. Why should I use all? We are not going to use all. And one more thing, static. The TV, we always fixed into the hall. Are we going to move a TV, hall, bathroom, toilet? No, right? Because that is a fixed asset. Double cart, it is going to be a fixed asset. Whereas coming to the water bottle, it is a variable asset. Hope you understand, sir. What is variable, what is constant? You should also be in a position to understand. In our case also, the state is always changing. Wherever you feel that some data is changing and that data is required across multiple components in same application. That is also. If you watch my video, and even when you are walking on the floor, or when you are traveling, or when you are doing susu, or maybe if you are there in the toilet also, please try to put a headset and watch. I'm sure the knowledge is going to get into the brain. And instead of watching, some sort of YouTube or maybe any other unwanted, please try to watch until you get a good job. Always you have to react that to Murli Padala's videos. Maybe if video is not comfortable, play video and watch, only listen audio. My audio also is so powerful. Okay. So here if you all can see the state and reducers are a pure functions. Why reducers are called as pure functions? As we already discussed, pure functions are functions which never ever create side effects. They will never ever add any extra. But human is not a reducer. Human is a culprit. He will always add masala. If I say something, please. I'll explain. Yes, I understand. I understand your point. And the best folder structure also I'll explain. Just allow me today. Let me complete this. Why? Because, sir, there is no concept of creating a store within an app. Not like that. There is no restrictions. You can create anywhere. But my sincere advice is create a separate folder inside your app, which is called a store. Inside that store, you have to create a slices. You should also create components you have to create outside. But you have to create a slices and configuring store, you have to put it inside a store folder. So that the folder structure is purely depends upon the individual. But the boilerplate, I mean to say that the actual folder structure, that is okay. That is given by a React team. And you cannot modify. Yes, you have an alteration. You can also modify the existing structure. But when you are modifying the existing structure of React, you may have to change the configurations in many places. But that's why people will always, they won't recommend you to change the actual architecture of a React folder. But inside that, you can do whatever the way that you want to do it. I'll also give you best practices, best folder structure. Maybe since you asked me, I'll try to give you in the upcoming session. Okay. Now here, if you all can see here, the component is calling. That is what here, if you all can see here, if you go back to the code. Now, what is my component? Here, if you all can see, my component is name is header. Header is a component. Now you see that we are about to create a dispatch. That is what, if you come back in this example, my component is dispatching the car using dispatcher. This is what I'm just showing here. You see that this is establishing a dispatcher. Now, where are we dispatching? You see that in line number 130 may dispatch followed by action. Now, when we are dispatching here, to whom we are dispatching? See how easy the diagram is. Is that complicated? Now, the component is dispatching action. The action is calling the reducer. Reducer is making the changes in a state. The state is again updated into the component. How crazy it is. Ramesh sir is not understanding the concept because Ramesh sir's brain is not matured. Again, for Ramesh sir, let me explain again. Ramesh sir, in the sense, he is a student. Again, sir, as long as I'm showing the code and I'm explaining, this code is written by us, not copied anywhere. Now, if you all can see, when the user started clicking on this logout button, what we have to do? We have to create a login action. Why? Because if it is a logout, we have to redirect them to login. If it is login, we have to redirect them to logout. That is how it is vice versa, right? Now, the component is initiating the event. The event is all about, it is allowing user to interact with the web elements. Events are allowing user to interact with the web elements. Now, when the user is interacting, we are dispatching action. Why we have to dispatch an action? It sounds something like, in your terms, you have ordered an iPhone. Order is placed. Then that is called click. You have initiated a order. Then what internally it will do, the order information will go to the repository, which is also called as Godon. Store, that can be called as store. The store can be anywhere. The order which is placed by a user, it will go to the store. The storekeeper will be there. He will try to collect the order ID. Then he will dispatch the package. That is where you would have already seen the order is dispatched from Delhi and Vascota. Now it is in Bangalore airport. From airport, first it is in transit, then it is in delivered or in progress, delivered. Finally, it is delivered. There is a multiple stages of delivery of your container. That is where if it is not dispatched, it won't even reach. Here also, as long as if the actions are not called, how actions are going to be called? By using a dispatcher. Dispatchers are calling the action. Action is calling the reducer. Reducers are calling not calling, they are modifying, they are changing the state. Finally, the state should update. How are we going to get the state into our component? That is where use selector. That is what we have learned. Where are we using? You see that use selector versus use dispatch. Now, by watching this diagram and this code, I'm sure it will give a lot of neat and clean explanation. If you guys are still have a confusions or questions, Murli sir has a patience to teach 1,000 times. I hope this is a clear explanation I'm giving. We are dispatching actions. Actions are calling reducers. See, why can't we use a normal function here? That is also a question. You can ask a number of questions, as much as you can. Yes. If you are going for a normal functions, they will try to generate a side effects. Again, to handle those side effects, we have to rewrite the logic, or we have to allow other function to handle. If too many recursive functions are working there, or too many lines of code is working, is that improving the performance or decreasing the performance? If the performance is decreased, will you get a benefits or awards or rewards? They will mar denge. The owners of a company is going to mar denge. They will say one day, get lost from my company. However, we have already sent this nonsense Britishers. Leave my motherland. Get lost. Do or die. That's okay. Come back to the concept. Any questions here? So here, the important things that you're supposed to understand, the middleware. Why middleware? So far, I think you people are good. Only this direction, you are okay. Component is calling. It is dispatching action. Dispatcher is calling action. Action is calling reducer. The cycle is fine. What is this guy? That is where there is a, for while working on dynamic applications, this REST API server would have been already connected to database. Now, just a second, I'll modify it for your best benefits. I'll modify something, just allow me. Am I going fast online team?
No, sir.
No, sir. Why I am not going fast? Yeah, so because we are learning. Boom, 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 bush. I'm just doing some magic. Boom, 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 bush. Wow, something is started. Huh? So that's okay. Here, if you all can see here, this is called database. What is this called? Database. What is the use of that database? Either this DB can be a MySQL DB, or it can also be a any other DB. This is known as database. Am I making sense, sir? Now every REST API is connected to the database with the help of backend. So to connect this REST API server would have been created by using either Java, or it would have created by using Python, or it would have created by using PHP or Node.js, ExpressJS, or XYZ. Node-based में ExpressJS. Hope you understand, sir. Any questions so far? Sir, this data, why database is required for every application? The reason behind using database is to convert your static application into dynamic and interactive application. Okay, so that is where we need a create async thunk. That is a middleware which is helping you to make an asynchronous calls. It is very, very important. Again, today, please try to perform asynchronous calls. Why? Because so far I explained about static, right? Whatever we are creating the state, that initial state, if you go back to my component example, you see here in the line number 77, 76 initial state, this is all static, right? Understand, sir? Even if you go back to the products, this is also a static. This is also static. But even when we are pushing the code, are we making any calls anywhere inside our component? Now, where is my product? Yeah, product list. Is there any way that I'm just, making a component? Now you please try to do it. Otherwise, I'll try to help you. You make a calls inside a component by using use effect. You please try to initiate a API call. But instead of using use effect, you have to use a middleware. Create a sync thunk. That middleware responsibility is to enable the asynchronous calls, which is helping us to get the data dynamically from a API. This is 100% interview question, boss. If you guys are not able to understand, watch the video again and again. Simple. Making sense? Now here HTTP methods. You should also be in a position to understand HTTP methods. What kind of HTTP methods are there? HTTP versus HTTPS and HTTP methods, HTTP states. What do you mean by HTTP state? What do you mean by HTTP method? It's 100% interview question. What do you mean by HTTP? Let's start fundamentals. I'm not asking about abbreviation. Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which has some set of rules and regulations, which is a part of internet technologies. What is that? It's a part of internet technologies and which contains some set of protocols. Protocols all about rules and regulations in order to make connection between a client and server. This is the definition of HTTP. Same it is applies for HTTPS as well, but only the one slight variation or difference is HTTPS is secure, which means that internally the data transfer between a client and server is transferred with an encoding format, SSL, Secure Socket Layer. What is that layer is all about? Secure Socket Layer. That's why it is protected. I think you have already seen a lock symbol for every before the domain in the browser. Let me take an example of that browser also. In this example, if I open my official website, AchieversIT, if you click on this, you'll be able to see that lock symbol. Connection is secure. Cookie and site data, site settings about this page. They are giving about this page. How crazy it is. You see? Understand, sir? So this is all some set of protocols are there. Where can I close? Now this is secure. In case if it is insecure, or I mean to say if it is not enabled with SSL, when we are transferring, now we are in the home page. If you are going to another page, some data has to transmit between a client and server behind the scenes. Yes or no? That data can be hacked by any one of the hackers. And if they hack also, the data is transferring in a normal English statement so that anybody can easily identify your data. But when you are using SSL, even though if they hack the data, that data would have been already encrypted or encoded. So that encoding, there are two types of encoding, encryption or decryption. There are few algorithms. There is an option for encryption only. There is no option for decryption. That we have to do it in server, so that the hackers might not be able to decrypt. That is how we have to secure. Sir, when we are building a web application, the security plays a very, very important. For that, the front-end team and back-end team, both of them have to work together. They have to make their application data more secure. Now here, still it is not completed. HTTP state. However, state in React application is different, but HTTP state is different. What do you mean by HTTP state? Why should we use HTTP? First of all, to make a connection between a client and server for getting dynamic data, right? In that, since client is at one origin, whereas coming to the server, it can be in the same origin or it can also be in a different origin. But I'll tell you, in OSI, Open System Interconnections, it is an architecture of a computer. Application architecture, I can solve it. In that architecture, though both client and server is residing in single server, but both cannot work in the same port. It's a very, very important point. Even though both client code and server code and database code, all three code, if it is there in the same server, but three different ports are required, it cannot execute in a single port. For that, the best example I can give you, There is an apartment, even though you have your brother and you have your sister and you, all three members, it cannot stay in a single house after marriage. Seriously, I'm telling you. Until unless if you are a small kid, yes. Our was all 100 people can be stayed at one place, but right after their marriage, it's a best practice to step away from a same house. But same building chalta hai. Same building be danger, but still somehow okay compared to same house. By that time, house number is same, but the flat is changing. That is called port. Server is same, but the port of a client. Now, if you guys are looking after the port of ReactJS, the port number is 3000, 3000. The port number of Node.js server, it is also be 3000. But if both of them are same port, then again operating system will be in a confusion. This guy is also fighting for same flat, and your brother is also fighting for same flat. You also fighting for the same port. That is where conflicts comes into the picture. By the time your father has to enter. Similarly, here the operating system has to enter. Operating system will try to allocate another port if the port is already blocked. I hope my examples are connecting with all of you. That is where Murli Pagdala is one of the best operator trainer in the world, not in just only India. I'm a world-class trainer. I'm training US, UK, and Singapore corporates. I'm not just training only Indians, but also outsiders. Okay, any questions here? Now HTTP state. Sir, now it is a point here. If applications, if the client code is at one particular place, if the server code is at another particular, is there any way that you people understand what is happening between a client and server? Now think about it, you are in this room, room number 1. Your friend is in room number 2. You send a request to your friend. Is that possible for you to understand what is your friend's state there? You cannot. Why? Because he is in different room. Now, similarly, when the client is sending HTTP request from client to a server, you never know what is going to happen in server. But you have a right to send a request only. You don't have any control on the request handling. The handling is not your responsibility. You have a responsibility of sending a request. You don't have any rights to handle the request. Who is going to handle the request? The server. But the client should understand what is happening in a server. Say yes or no. Not exactly what activity it is happening, it is not required, but he has to notify to the user. Say yes or no. This component is, let me just check. Listen carefully here. Next few minutes is very, very important. Now these guys are users. Users always, these users, they will always keep watching what they keep watching. They'll keep watching the components. Say yes or no, sir. They'll keep watching the components. Now these guys are keep watching components. As long as if they are watching component, for them, there should be an update. If they click on any one of the button, and internally we have to connect to the API, but until the API is responding, the client responsibility is to engage the client. Users, engage the user. Otherwise, what happens? That is what the best example, if you all ask, in a restaurant, if you go, always they will try to give us starters first. First, they will give you water. Then they will give us starters. Why starters? In order to shut users' mouth. Otherwise, what happened? The users are keep targeting the restaurant servants. They'll give start, sir, what do you want? Sir? Yeah, please. Sir, we have a chicken masala, chicken pakodi, chicken lollipop, chicken manchurian. Okay, this is starter. They'll keep giving a starter, but behind the scenes, the master, the main chef is keep preparing a biryani or XYZ because it takes at least 10-15 minutes, or worst case, some items it might take 30 minutes also. But in order to engage the customer, if there is no starters in a restaurant, the restaurant has to shut down. Similarly, if an application is not engaging a user when the user is performing some action, if the action is take place in the background, you have to engage. That's the reason loaders. The loader. Hope every application, if something is happening, the loaders are coming. Even though if the internet connection is not there, Google Chrome also there is a game. They are engaging the user. The duck is keep, if you start pressing, space button, the duck is keep running. They are engaging. Why? Because internet is not there. By that time they feel frustrated and they are engaging. It is all single page architecture only. The entire React works on single page architecture. Ikkada leda, akkada leda. Everywhere there is working on single page. I'm not talking about the architecture. I'm talking about the connections. Now, when you are sending a request from client to server, now we never know the client. In the sense, the browser don't know what is happening in a server. That is where there is a different kind of HTTP states. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many states are there? For HTTP states is 5 states. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0. No connection established between a client and server. 1. The connection is raised. The connection is raised. 2. Connection is requested. 3. Connection is established. 4. Response is given. When the connection is established, ultimately response has to come. 0 to 4. The 5 states are there. It is very important when you are making a HTTP because most of the people don't know that. Then what kind of methods? HTTP states are 5 methods. Get method, post method, put method, delete method, options. These are the methods. Where to use get, where to use post, where to use put, where to use delete. And though there are n number of HTTP methods are there, out of all, as a developer, the 4 is enough. Get, post, put, and delete. Get is only for getting the data from a server. No need to put. What is put? Put is all about updating. Some data is already there, and if you want to modify that data in a server, then put is going to work. What is post? Creating. In order to create, that is the postman. What postman will do? He will try to give a payload data. When you pass a payload, he will try to deliver the content. That is why it is post. Post request is always performed when you are pushing the data into a database. Get request is always getting a data from a database. Put request is always update a data into a database. Delete is straightforward. These are the 4 methods that you understand. It's more than enough. Any questions? Now, when you are making this REST API calls, whoever asks REST API, then you have to understand what is REST. R-E-S-T. It is not necessary in case if you are only a fresher, that to front-end guy, no need to understand what is REST. But if you are a full stack guy, it is mandatory for you to understand. Representational state transfer protocols. Representational state transfer. And there is another one called SOAP. SOAP is there. That is not necessary for you. Chhod do. Learning too much is a problem for freshers, but for us it is important. As I already said, 80 technologies that I worked on. And I never felt any technology is tough because I always put my 100% efforts. I love learning. Because till my last breath, I should act as a student. That's why Albert Einstein, life never stop teaching. It will always start teaching. Please try to learn. Life always teaches. Who is Albert Einstein? What kind of scientist he is? Nuclear. E is equal to energy is equal to mass into E is equal to mc square. Any questions here? That's okay. Come back. So come to the React. Any questions, online team? If you have questions, say yes. Otherwise, say no. I'm in a confusion whether you guys are listening to me or not. Am I audible, online team?
Yes, sir.
So that's all for today's session. Tomorrow, what I'm planning to explain, unit test. I'll give you a fundamental idea about unit testing today. What do you mean by unit testing? Sir, we have written this much of code. For all this code only, I'm going to write a unit testing. Why unit testing is required? Since you as a developer, you have built a unit. It is your responsibility to ensure this unit of code, what you have written, it should not produce any kind of errors as per the business needs. If it is producing any errors, then that is not going to be executed in a server, right? Earlier, developers were not doing any kind of a unit testing. Because of that, testers are getting too many errors that is impacting on the application delivery date. If too many errors are there, which means that it is a low efficiency of a developer, right? Developer should not produce too many errors. He has to have a common sense. He has to have a technical knowledge. He has to build a unit without many errors. Yes, there will be bugs, but not silly bugs. In the sense, in the place of closing tag, they are opening, and instead of using variable, they are using constant. Instead of using constant, they are using function. This kind of, I hope we have already seen some sort of errors in JavaScript, reference errors, syntactical error, range error, type error, isn't it? This is all error types. So we have to be in a position to do that, error handling. I'll explain unit testing. I'll also explain about error handling. I'll also explain about communication between a component. These three concepts I'll try to wind up so that, I'll give a project. Maybe this week. What is today? It's a Friday. Oh my God, too early the Friday. How soon the weekends are coming, you see. So let's work on Saturday and Sunday. By Wednesday, I'll try to finish. Not Saturday and Sunday. I'm sorry, because I have a lot of schedules on weekends. Let's work on Monday, Friday, so Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'll ask my team to assign a small project on this hooks and Redux toolkit. Yes, there is no test for all of you. There is no activity. There is only one activity. You please try to perform. Project. I'll ask my team to prepare a project guideline by using Redux toolkit and hooks. Okay, I'm sure. Thank you so much for reminding. I'll ask my team to give that. So the whole day, you please try to finish. Don't try to copy paste the code. Maybe refer the document and keep writing the code by watching the refer document. Not copy and paste. Not copy and paste. If you copy and paste, who is the loser? It's you. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for today's session. Have a wonderful day ahead.